NBA trade deadline reaction. Hit all these trades, mostly for, playoff contending teams move they made to improve themselves. Talk about some of these other teams because a couple teams that we consider not so good acquired some pretty big talent. So obviously got to touch on that. And I'm going to save the Lakers for its own episode. So the Lakers want to be a little bit after this one. And at the end, we're going to talk about my Super Bowl prediction. I'm going to break that thing down too. But I got to start with the NBA. But make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Make sure y'all follow. Make sure y'all share. Other than that, we're going to get right on into this NBA trade deadline. Probably the biggest move of the trade deadline was the Clippers and the Cavs swapping James Harden and Darius Garland. And the Clippers also got a second round pick in that. I think that's a trade that couldn't be better for both teams. I don't think the pairing of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell worked, and I never thought it was going to work. And I think the Clippers also had too many old guys and needed to get younger. And they were able to do that while the Cavs were able to upgrade. I believe James Harden is still a better player, even at 36, is still a better player than Darius Garland for this next 2 or 3 year run for Donovan Mitchell. He's a guy that's played, James Harden, that is a guy that's played as the point guard to other guards and other high scoring players and can get the ball to guys, especially on a team like the Cavs, where now he's got Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. When he has a center that he can throw lobs to and playing the pick and roll with, he's magical. As you've seen with guys like Zubac, Clint Capella, when he was with Joel Embiid, these guys, he has fantastic chemistry with bigs. So those guys I feel like are going to feast. And he has no problem getting the ball to a guy like Donovan Mitchell. We've seen it with Kyrie Irving. That was a great tandem. He had Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and he was able to get these guys the ball, put them in their spots. And not to mention, he's still averaging 25 right now. Now, he's not shooting super efficiently, but with the Cleveland Cavaliers, he's on the team now where I believe he gets to kind of slot in as this third option, to where if Evan Mobley doesn't have a going, if Donovan Mitchell, doesn't have a going, he can kind of fill in the points. But I think it's in a better situation because we know as his playoff resume hasn't been too great in like game sevens and big games, but I don't think they're needing him to have 25 points, in a playoff series. They just need him to fill in where he gets. And I think he's going to be able to average anywhere from 8 to 10 to 11 assists. I think that's going to be a given. And like I said, those bigs are going to feast. Mobley, his life is a whole lot easier now. Jared Allen, obviously, a whole lot easier now. And Donovan Mitchell, I think there's just having that other scoring threat. And Darius Garland is good, and he's a solid scoring threat. But James Harden, James Harden he can light you up for 50 without question. We haven't seen too many 50s from him recently, but we know for sure he can at least go get your 30s and 40s. And with that being the case, it's going to be hard to just help off of Donovan Mitchell when you have that other scoring machine, especially with him playing on the backside, and he got lob threats, as I already mentioned, and they got shooters out there. Guys like Jordan Tyson's been playing well. So, they're figuring it out, and I like the way that they're playing, and I like that move. And then for the Clippers, as I already mentioned, got a lot younger. They had to get younger because all their guys are getting old. Obviously, they're called the Unk Squad right now, and that future kind of looked bleak. It was like, where are they going to go with this? And now you got a point guard in Darius Garland, still probably only like 26 years of age or so around there. So he can grow in your next evolution of this team. And you have a point guard that's already been a 2-time All-Star and a guy that's played playoff basketball games before now. And a guy that's still kind of passed first to get the ball to your best player in Kawhi Leonard. The Clippers ultimately ended up trading Zubac, or that would have been a good pick and roll duo. We'll talk about Zubac right after this trade. But that's kind of the trade. And so I touched a little bit on it already, and I dropped a TikTok and a short for it. But I found it a win-win, so I don't feel like outside of that, there's really much to say. I think both guys fit perfectly in their new spots and where the direction of each team is going for the next, 2, 3, 4 years. I think both guys fit both teams' timelines, so I ain't got much to say about that trade. I think it's a win-win for both teams. The Clippers also made another trade and traded Zubac to the Indiana Pacers, and they traded him for Benedict Mathurin, and they got 2 first-round picks, and they got a second-round pick. I'm confused in the sense of, because I like the deal that they got. Benedict Mathurin, I like Benedict Mathurin. I like them getting picks back because I like I said, I think their future looked a little bleak. So now they got some more ammunition in this future with Darius Garland, with Benedict Mathurin, with these picks. But for this year, they kind of just started winning games. So now they don't have a big man. Who's their big man now? So this year, I feel like is it going down as a wash now? Unless you're going to play tons of small ball. We saw how that worked for the Lakers last year in the playoffs. The Lakers played not bad defense. They just couldn't grab a rebound. And it feels like the Clippers are probably going to be in that situation this year. So that's my only confusion about it. I think for the Pacers, it's a perfect trade. They needed a big to pair with Tyrese Halliburton when he gets back from his Achilles next year. And Zubac is the perfect guy for that. You put Zubac in that situation. He can't space the floor like Miles Turner did, but he can honestly, on everything else on the offensive end, he's probably better at. He's probably a better rebounder. So not quite the shot blocker that Miles Turner was, but everything that you needed offensively from big, he's there for you. And for the most part, he's pretty durable. So they need a replacement there because you need to have a nice big with Tyrese Halliburton. So I love it for them. And for the Clippers, I like it for their future as well. For this year, I guess they're calling it a watch. They're still, low in that playing in that 9-10 spot. But just the way that they'd have been playing, and obviously we already mentioned James Harden being traded, but I just felt like they kind of try to keep that momentum going. So now I don't know where they go, what their center is going to look like. Without that, they seriously can't compete. Obviously, they're going to be on an uphill battle anyway, trying to get into the playoffs and being real contenders anyway. So maybe that's just what they saw, and they was like, let's go get picks out of it now and move this thing forward in the future. It'll be interesting to see, though, are they trying to rebuild around Kawhi? Because now if the way this trade went down, it's kind of like you're wasting a year of Kawhi. And he's having his best career year, at least scoring-wise, throughout his NBA career. So very interesting, but that's something we're going to have to wait to the offseason to see if they're going to keep Kawhi and keep building around him, or if they're also going to, unload Kawhi and get more draft picks, more draft capital, and rebuild around Darius Garland. Going to be very interesting to see. But that's been the Clippers moves so far. That was Cavs we mentioned. Another big one that was also kind of a shocker, Anthony Davis to the Washington Wizards. This one and for a lot of these trades in the trade deadline was like, wow, nobody saw this coming. The rumors of where you thought a guy might go, they did not end up where you thought they'd go. And for Anthony Davis, this is obviously a move for next year for the Washington Wizards because next year you have Trae Young, you have Anthony Davis, you have Alex Sarr, you have Keyshawn George, and you just need to continue to fill around this team. You're going to have a top 5 pick probably because Anthony Davis is not going to play this year. Seems like they're obviously resting Trae Young, and you're going to tank. You're going to get your top 5 pick. Maybe you trade it, maybe you use it, whatever you do, and you bring in pieces that help mesh around Trae Young and Anthony Davis. And the pairing itself, I love. And the way that their team is currently constructed, they can continue to build on this thing. The question is, you traded for 2 guys, especially Anthony Davis, that always end up hurt. Trae Young with ankle injuries, Anthony Davis unfortunately, everything is it's always something, whether it's the eye, it's a calf, a hand now, it's whatever is going on, he's always hurt, unfortunately, because when he's on the court, we know what Anthony Davis does on both ends of it. It's just he can't stay healthy. So, but this signals a move for a team that's been, pretty awful for the last 5-6 years, that they're really trying to gear themselves for a playoff run. And I like this move because they are in the Eastern Conference. Because they're in the Eastern Conference, I like this move. We're going to talk about another trade later, Jaren Jackson to the Jazz. And I view them as both similar moves because both teams, again, been pretty bad over the last 5-6 years, and they're trying to get back to winning status. And they went and traded for a guy that they did that, and they used picks to do so. Difference is one is in the Western Conference with a whole bunch of monsters, and then you have the Wizards in the Eastern Conference, and there's only 3 or 4 really top dog teams. You got the Pistons, you got the Knicks, we'll see about the Cavs, you got the Celtics, and then maybe Tyrese is back next year. So we'll see what happens. The Bucks are obviously up in limbo. The Heat still trying to make moves. So you only got to worry about 5-6 teams there in that Eastern Conference. In the Western Conference, you got to worry about 8 or 9 arguably coming out, because there's teams in the Western Conference that can miss the playoffs and are still probably better than some of the teams in the Eastern Conference playoffs. So that's why I don't necessarily like it for the Jazz, and we'll talk about that again later. But for the Wizards, I'm very anxious to see how this thing goes next year, because they going in and they want to compete, which I like. I love an owner that wants to finally go and stop rebuilding, stop losing. Let's just go and win. And so you made a trade for Trae Young, you made a trade for Anthony Davis, both, and you didn't have to give up much. You took low risk, high reward on all these kind of guys. So I don't mind it. I'm very intrigued to see it. And then for the Mavs, it signals the Cooper Flag era. Obviously, we already knew it was a Cooper Flag era. But when you send out Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving is still there. When you send out Anthony Davis, you obviously signal, and you don't really get back players in return. You kind of just going for draft picks. You kind of signal the fact that, yeah, we're about to take this thing around the guy that we just took number 1 and build it according to his play style. Kyrie Irving is interesting in how he fits into all of this, because when you trade Anthony Davis, the question is, you want to get Cooper Flag another superstar now. Will Kyrie Irving play this year? I don't think Kyrie Irving should play this year now. You go into next year, are you going to trade Kyrie in the offseason, or do you want to see how Kyrie and Coop play first? You go through October, November, December. You give them, maybe even the early part of January. Then you start fishing around okay, do we want to keep Kyrie and Coop for the next couple years while Kyrie's still at it? Hopefully he comes back as still Kyrie Irving. Or do you trade Kyrie, as I mentioned, if not in the offseason, do you trade him before the deadline next year and continue this rebuild around Cooper Flag? That's going to be the question. But I think Kyrie Irving has shown he can kind of fit around everybody with the way he plays basketball. Fit around Luka Doncic, fit around LeBron, fit around Kevin Durant and James Harden. So he can kind of fit everywhere. So if they want to keep that, that's your duo right there. Cooper Flag as he continues to grow and Kyrie Irving, and you just continue to add more pieces to this roster. And they still a good roster. They got Derek Lively. They got Daniel Gafford. They got Max Christie. So they got three. They got Najee Marshall. They got a bunch of guys. And now you got picks to go along with it to kind of continue to make moves and change things around the board. I think the biggest thing is you just need Cooper to keep growing, and then ultimately to be in playoff contention in that monster of a Western Conference. You need another guy to go with Coop, and you might already have that in Kyrie. So I like the trade. Again, another trade that I think worked for both teams. I think Anthony Davis kind of knew he was probably going to be out of Dallas, considering he hasn't been able to play this year, and they're kind of now they're playing better as of late because Coop's kind of caught up to that number one status. But they didn't meet the standard that I think Anthony Davis was hoping for. And when that happens, it was easy to see that he was probably going to be out of there by the trade deadline. So that was another big one. Anthony Davis to the Wizards. And the other one, as I already mentioned, that we're going to next, Jaren Jackson to the Jazz. Signals rebuild for Memphis, obviously. They didn't trade John Morant at this trade deadline, but I think he's going to be gone somewhere in this offseason. So they're going for full rebuild, as obviously they got rid of Dylan Brooks. They got rid of Desmond Bane. They got rid of Jaren Jackson. And next will be John Morant, and, ultimately at the end. Similar to that Wizards trade and with them getting Anthony Davis, this signals, the Utah Jazz want to compete. They got Keontae George. They got Lauri Markkanen. They got Kessler. Walker Kessler, although he's not playing this year. They got Jaren Jackson, but they got Ace Bailey. But even with this trade, do you consider them, because I don't, would you consider them even a top 8 team in the Western Conference next year? Because I don't see that, even with that acquisition of Jaren Jackson. And they gave up 3 first-round picks to get him. So that's where, to me, it's tough, because in that Western Conference, and they can still make moves. I don't see Keyshawn George anywhere, and considering they gave up 3 first-round picks, Jaren Jackson ain't going nowhere. But maybe do you try to trade Lauri Markkanen and get a better player? Maybe they try to put themselves in the Giannis sweepstakes. Does Giannis want to be in Utah? Probably not. But, maybe that's a move that they're looking for, to put somebody else, because I think you got to get somebody with real star power in order to be in competition in that Western Conference. And usually teams like Utah has to draft that guy, because teams aren't, as I mentioned, players ain't really clamoring to go to Utah. Teams like the Bucks, you got to draft Giannis because it's hard to get other guys there. Ultimately, they got Dame there because Giannis is a superstar, and Dame kind of won. And although Dame wanted to go to Miami, they just wouldn't trade him there. So he was like, next best thing, I'll go play with Giannis. But for the most part, guys ain't going to Milwaukee. They're not going to Utah. Like, they're going to the Lakers. Even a place like Atlanta, you don't even see too many free agents going to Atlanta. And that's obviously, you much rather be in Atlanta than probably Utah and Milwaukee and places like that. Oklahoma City, they was able to trade for a young SGA and build him through that. I think they have to make another move in order for me to really be impressed with this trade, but I'm not mad at them for trying to, become a title contender. I just think in order for them to really make this trade pay off, they got to do there has to be another big move in the work for this thing to work out for them. And we'll see how that goes. They got an offseason. Obviously this year's another wash for them, but next year, and that's why both of these moves, Wizards and the Jazz, are signals for next year. They're not for this year. So that gives them also the offseason to figure out how they're going to tweak and add rotational pieces to make both of these teams real competitive targets or real competitive teams going into 26-27 season. We'll see how that falls out. Porzingis to the Warriors. Kristaps Porzingis to the Warriors for Buddy Hield and Jonathan Kuminga. A+ for the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks are building a pretty good team over there. They got Jalen Johnson and they're building around him. They traded Luke Kennard, obviously, because they got Buddy Hield. He went to the Lakers. But you get now you can kind of see what they're building. They got a bunch of young athletic wings that play both sides of the court. Jonathan Kuminga and Jalen Johnson. This seems like to be the duo that they kind of going to build around. They still got Nickeil Alexander-Walker playing well. They got Okongwu. So they got a lot of pieces, man. I've really enjoyed watching the Atlanta Hawks without Trae Young and just watching the development of all of these young guys that they have on their team. And so I think adding Buddy Hield, another shooter, adding Jonathan Kuminga, another go-to scorer alongside Jalen Johnson. And when you have that in this league now, it's kind of shifted to where you want these big athletic two-way wings. And they got 2 big athletic two-way wings, but that they're both they're both scorers. So you can allow them to still be active. Like they're going to be able to go get you 20. They're not just 3-and-D wings. They're guys that can go get you 30. They're guys that can go get you 35. They're guys that can get you a 30-point trip dub, as we've seen with Jalen Johnson. He's averaging a double-double with, 7 or 8 assists to go along with it. And now Jonathan Kuminga gets out of the Warriors scraps that have kind of held him back, in my opinion. Now he gets to go rock out, and we can see what he can possibly bloom into. So I'm very excited for that. And then for the Warriors, I think it's a good fit. And I think this kind of also goes into like a next year plan, but obviously for this year too, as they try to maximize the Steph Curry window. But it goes into now they have a center that they needed, because they've been missing a center for, even when they were in their dynasty, they'd never really had a center. And now they got one that can space the floor. Problem is Porzingis has been, over the last 2 or 3 years, it's hard to keep really his whole career, but definitely over the last 2 or 3 years when he's been in like a competitive team and you're watching him, it's hard to keep the man on the floor. So we got to hope that they can keep him on the floor. But if he's on the floor, I do think them having a stretch 5, although Draymond is still on the court, so he still kind of closes it. But with Draymond, with Porzingis on the court, I think the space that he's going to provide gives them another component that they're kind of lacking, on that offense. And it's not going to allow teams to really eye in on Steph as much. Like, it's going to make it a lot harder, because obviously he's still the guy you're going to eye in on. But now it's going to be a lot harder when the 5-man can also step out and be a consistent 3-point shooter, as Porzingis can be. With Jimmy Butler, this move looks like it'd get very interesting, but they're not going to have Jimmy Butler this year. And we'll see when he comes back next year. And that's if he comes back still, even though Jimmy Butler was averaging probably 26, probably what he was averaging or so. But we'll see what Jimmy comes back after ACL, because he is a little bit older now. But so I like the move. I don't know if it pushes the needle for the Warriors this year. I think they're going to have to make more moves in this offseason, but we'll see how it goes. So I like, again, another trade where I feel like it benefits both teams, but I feel like it benefits Atlanta a little more than the Warriors right now, because I think the Warriors are missing a lot more. Like the Hawks are on the come up. They're on the building. So they're building stages. So now they're putting their building blocks in place. For the Warriors, they kind of already had their building block in place in Steph Curry. You just kind of need to fill out the rest of this thing. And so I don't know, with Jimmy Butler's injury, I don't know how, as I said, with Jimmy Butler works out, and it gets very interesting without him. I don't see them going anywhere, because they were not able to get Giannis. So that's the way I see that. More moves around the edges. The Wolves got Ayo Dosunmu, a very sneaky pickup that a lot of people are not going to talk about. But what I think that the Timberwolves have lacked this year, and they've been missing Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's in Atlanta, as I mentioned earlier. And Dosunmu kind of can fill in. I think he's a better shooter than Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but he's also a good defender. And so when you can have that guy, I think he fits in perfectly next to Ant-Man. He fits in perfectly on that team and what they need. So that's a move. And they traded Rob Dillingham and like 3 second-round picks. So they didn't trade. And I like Rob Dillingham, but I don't think next to Ant-Man he was ever going to blossom into what him being drafted in the lottery, like presenting that he could possibly grow into. And so Chicago got so many guards. I don't know what they're doing over there. Like, they're about to just play. Their entire team is going to be just like, they're just going to be running point guards on the court pretty much. It's very crazy what's going on. But I like it for the Wolves, and they need that 3-and-D wing, as we've seen. And he's a point guard, but you need 3-and-D players to win championships now. That's what you need. The Oklahoma City Thunder is built with a bunch of outside of SGA, and he's still like a good, solid defender. But outside of SGA, that team is built of just 3-and-D wings. Even J-Dub is a 3-and-D wing. Now he can score the ball at a better clip, but he's a 3-and-D wing. So they're kind of built in that mold. So he fits right into the Wolves and what they were missing from last year. And I think he's that last ingredient that they need to like get back to the point where they were in the Western Conference final last year. Now it's just, have they developed, and are they a better team than they were last year? And can they go and beat a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder? Is Ant-Man, is Julius Randle, is that team ready to take that next step? And that's what we're going to find out. Another move around the edges, Knicks acquire Jose Alverado. Another one, Miles McBride's out for the year. So they kind of needed that backup point guard, and he fits that mold. Another guy, he's going to be a pesky defender. He likes to wait in the backcourt and, rob the ball from teams when they're inbounding. So we know he does that, shoots the ball at a fairly decent clip, but he's just another guy. He can come in, he can steady when Jalen Brunson goes to the bench, he can steady the ship a little bit. He can do a lot of different things, and just kind of, you can fit him in anywhere. And those are the kind of players you like, where you can just tell him he can go in and just create havoc off the bench. And that's what you want for guys off the bench. Similar to a guy like Vando on the Lakers, just create some havoc somewhere. and give us extra possessions, extra tips, whatever it is. And so I like that move as well. That's all I really had for the NBA trade deadline. As I mentioned, I'm gonna talk about the Lakers on their own in an episode, so that one will be dropping as well in the next day. But last thing I want to talk about was my Super Bowl prediction and the Super Bowl breakdown. We got the Super Bowl this Sunday, the Seahawks and the Patriots. This game is going to come down to two things. One, can Sam Darnold go one more game without the turnover bug? We know throughout his career, that's been the narrative. So far through these playoffs, he's been fantastic. He's done everything that's kind of been needed to do. The game against the Niners, he didn't have to do much. Fantastic. The game against the Rams, he actually had to go and put up points, and he did exactly what he needed to do. Can he do it one more time? I'm not saying go out there and throw for 300. Can he just avoid the turnover bug? What we've seen a lot in the playoffs, the team that turned the ball over has lost pretty much every game. So can he just avoid the turnover bug one more game? That's that question. And the other question is, can Drake May wake up and play like he played in the regular season against the Seahawks defense? Because he has not played well through these playoffs. But the difference between the Seahawks and these other teams, he's playing a team where the offense, as I mentioned, with the way Sam Darnold is playing and the way they've ran the football with Kenneth Walker, they're playing a team that can go get points, and they're playing a team that also has a top defense. They played against a bunch of top defenses, but those other offenses, excluding the Broncos because they had a backup quarterback, so that contributed to their offense being poor. But nobody was scared. Nobody's scared of the Houston Texans. Nobody was scared of the Broncos with Jarrett Stidham. So like they're in these positions where they don't have to worry about much. Nobody, Justin Herbert, one, doesn't play great in playoff games or hasn't so far in his career, also missing both tackles. So both offenses all three offenses that they've played have kind of been, whatever, right? This team is good on both ends. Another top 5 defense, but an offense that is clicking on all cylinders with JSN, arguably the best receiver in football. He's gonna have to put up points in my opinion. And he cannot play. If he plays the way he's played through the first 3 playoff games, it's not going to end well. And in the regular season, he looked like the MVP. He was also not playing teams as talented as the teams he's played in the playoffs, the Denver Broncos. Obviously a snowstorm and all that other stuff. But even before the snowstorm, the defense was holding him in check. When he played the Texans, they held him in check. So like the Chargers held him in check pretty much. Each game, the offense has not had to do anything. This game, I don't believe they can win this game without the offense having to do something. So Drake May, again, can you not turn the ball over, and can you click back into being the MVP candidate that you were in the regular season? Can you be that? And that's my question. Those are the 2 questions coming into this game. And with all that said, I'm taking the Seahawks because I'm at their best, they're the best team. And even at their worst, I believe that they could beat the Patriots and not necessarily play their best game. The only way I see the Patriots really winning this game is if Sam Darnold has a monster turnover game. I think they can survive 1, maybe 2. I think they can for sure survive 1, maybe 2. If he has one of them games where he has 3 or 4, obviously I'm picking against them. But that's what I think. I think that's what the Patriots have to do. They got to force him to have that turnover. If he plays a clean game of football, even if he doesn't throw for 300, but he plays a clean game of football, so he throws for 220 and, a touchdown, no interceptions, I believe they win this game. I believe 1, they're going to be able to control time of possession with the way that they can run the football. They're going to be able to control field position. That's the word I was looking for, field position. They're going to be able to control all of that. And when you can control that, I feel like it just lends itself to allowing that defense to dominate and allowing Sam Darnold to pick his spots. I think Drake May has to be the MVP candidate in this game. Drake May has to have a good game. I don't believe they can win with him having a subpar game or an okay game. I think he has to be good at least. If not great, he has to be good. He can't just be okay. Against that Seattle Seahawks defense, he can't just be okay. Especially when as I mentioned, that offense can go and click up points better than all the other teams that they played. And that's the way I see this game going. So as I said, I'm taking the Seahawks, and that's my breakdown. We're going to take the Seahawks, and we're going to see how it goes. Last game of football until, August when we get preseason back, but game that actually counts until September. So last game of football for 7 months. Let's make it a good one. I honestly don't really care who wins. I just want to see a good game. But I do, if I'm picking with my brain, I got to go with the Seattle Seahawks. I think they're better on both sides of the ball. And when you have that, the only way you lose is if you beat yourself, or if Drake May can go out there and be Superman. And we're going to find out if he can. All right. So that's been trade deadline reaction along with Super Bowl breakdown. Make sure y'all hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Make sure y'all share. And man, make sure y'all tap in on the next one. You dig what I'm saying? We out.